Parshas Beha-alotcha begins with the mitzvah of Beha-alotcha Haneros, the mitzvah of lighting the candles, the menorah in the Beis-Hamikdash, in the temple. And that's a discussion among the Rishonim, the earlier commentators, and later ones in terms of what was the nature of the mitzvah. Was the mitzvah to actually what they call the Beha-alotcha, the actual lighting, or is the fact that the candles were lit? So that's a discussion regarding the Minyan Beis-Hamikdash. Regarding Ner Chanukah, it seems to be that we paskin halakha osa mitzvah, that the actual lighting of the candle is the mitzvah, and it's good. In fact, it's asur bahana. It's prohibited to get benefit from the Chanukah candles. And in fact, that's part of the halacha, that you have to light in the place where you could fulfill your mitzvah. For instance, if you light more than 20 amas high and then to move the candle, that would be a problem. So it's a machlokas by the Beis-Hamikdash, by Ner Chanukah. It's a discussion whether halakha or hanachos, and we pass on halakha osa mitzvah. What about regarding the mitzvah of Ner Shabbos? What is the mitzvah? Is the mitzvah of Ner Shabbos, is that the act of kindling, the Beha-alotcha, or is it the result? So, actually, Tosfos writes in Shabbos, I believe Chavhei, he talks about the case where, let's say, a person has a candle burning since 10 o'clock in the morning, and now it's after Paga Mincha, it's before Shkia, and this question is, does the person have to blow out the candle and relight it? So Tosfos goes one opinion that no, you could be yotze with that candle that was lit before. In fact, that's a discussion as well in the Rishonim whether one has to make a bracha at all, and halakha is Ner Shabbos. Well, halakha is Ner Shabbos. So we pass and we make a bracha. So according to that shita, that one would not have to blow it out and relight it. So that shita might hold there's no bracha, but working with our shita that we do have a bracha, so you wouldn't have to relight it, and you could just make a bracha at the appropriate time. And Tosfos have a quote that no, he thinks one has to blow it out and then relight it. What is the nekudas hamachlokas? What is the issue between the two opinions in the Bali Tosfos, whether one has to blow out the candle or not? So it seems to be this issue. If you hold the mitzvah is the Beha-alotcha, if the mitzvah is the actual act of kindling, so therefore you have to blow it out and relight it, because when you lit it originally, it wasn't the Zman HaMitzvah. However, if you hold the mitzvah is that to have light, so what's the difference when you lit the candle? As long as it's light now and you're benefiting from the light, you're having Yisud the Shabbos, you're getting enough from the candles, so therefore that would be enough. So that seems to be 2 days in the Bali Tosfos, and the Ramah seems to go with the second opinion. The post can go with the second opinion that you need a Beha-alotcha. However, that's so. All things being equal in terms of lechatchila cases, obviously there's no reason, no harm. Blow out the candles and relight them. However, the Achronim talk about a case where a woman forgot to light candles, and it's ben hashmashos. It's twilight. It's in between sunset and Tzeitzach Chavim. Sunset and when the 3 stars come out. And so since Ben Hashmashos is known as Safek Yom, Safek Laila, it's doubtful day, doubtful night. So therefore we are machmir, we do not do any malacha on Friday night starting from sunset. So the shayla is, what do? You haven't lit the candles yet, but it's Ben Hashmashos, so you can't light the candles. That's a discussion. Some Achronim suggest that you get a guy to light the candles. I ain't shlichus v'akam. That's not a real din of shlichus here. It's a result-oriented thing. So if it's a result, it's not working within shlichus, so anyone can do it. So have a guy, have a Gentile light the candle, and you make the bracha. So that's the question whether then there's a Maisa Hadlaka happening. A guy is mufka from the mitzvah. So we see from the case over there, it might be a bit di'evid, but that's where the core of the halacha is determined. We see, according to many poskim, there's a whole discussion, or Kiva Eger or Magen Avram in general, with whether you make the bracha in general on the Maisa HaMitzvah and the Kiyam HaMitzvah. Because if Chaim writes by mezuzah, then let's say if I put a mezuzah up in your door, it's clearly your mitzvah, but I'm doing the Maisa, so we make a bracha on the Maisa mitzvah. So the question is, over here we seem to be makel that a woman can make a bracha on the non-Jews lighting. Hence, it seems to imply that the bracha is going on the fact that there's light, on the kiyam, that, as the Gemara says, one of the purposes of main functions of Ner Shabbos is Shalom Bayis. In fact, and that's what we just read about last week with the Mei Sota, with the issue of we go through even to the prohibition, we're willing to do mechikas Hashem, we're willing to destroy God's name in order to save a marriage, and that's the whole issue with the Mesota. And the Ramban writes, it's the only mitzvah we have where usually mitzvah and nisim are mutually exclusive. When you're doing a mitzvah, you're not involved in a miracle. A miracle means basically God's doing it. A mitzvah means you're doing it. So usually they don't go hand in hand. The only exception to the rule is the Mesota. Why is that the exception to the rule? Because that involves Shalom Bayis. That to save a marriage, this between one man and a woman, God's even willing to have his name destroyed. There's the famous story with Shlomo Zalman Auerbach. He came back from shul one day with his Talmidim, and he started fixing his tie, fixing his hat. So the student said, "What is it, your home?" I go, "You're expecting guests in your house?" He said, "You betcha I'm expecting guests." The Gemara Chazal tell us that when there's peace in the home, the Shalom Bayis, the Shechina is Shorabo, the divine presence lives there. But if there's fighting in the house, that's Mechikas Hashem. That's fighting, and God runs out of the house. So we see the purpose of Shabbos. One of the purposes, Shalom Bayis. Shalom Bayis really isn't totally in the Ma'is Hadlaka. Shalom Bayis is totally in the fact that there's light in the house. So therefore, that's a discussion. So those who are Mekel, then in that case, where one could turn, where you get a guy to do it. So that's and in fact, that's where the question comes up, or the potential problem. We'll have to go into this issue in more detail another time. But the issue of what we call colloquial early Shabbos. Early Shabbos we make every week. We have a mitzvah of Tosefes Shabbos. The early Shabbos in the summer we daven mincha before Plag HaMincha. That's the earliest time. Now on the 6th day, to an hour and a quarter before sunset. So 4:45 is the earliest time to bring in Shabbos. So you daven mincha before 4:45, you daven ma'ariv after. The issue is, let's say someone's alone, their wife's out of town, they're lighting, and the problem is, if you go to shul, let's say you have to go in for Kaddish, so you go to shul, obviously you're going to be davening mincha before Shkia, before Plag HaMincha. So then the problem is, but you can't light candles yet, because one should be getting light candles after Plag HaMincha. So what do you do? So you're in shul, and let's say it's difficult to go back, so is there any heter to light candles before Plag HaMincha and make a bracha later on, either when you come back? Is it similar to having a non-Jew light candles after Shkia? In other words, there's no Ma'is Hadlaka, but at least, I was one kamachak, at least the Ma'is Hadlaka was done after, during their proper time, but here the Ma'aseh Halakha is done after, so that's a question, that's one issue in terms of, according to that day in Tosfos, there's no Ma'aseh Halakha might be problematic, but we find other cases where, let's say by Pidyon Haben, where a Kohen, where you could make the bracha on the Pidyon Haben before 30 days, and it could be Chal later on, but if the bracha is going on the Ma'aseh mitzvah, not the Kiyam, so maybe one could argue you can make the bracha earlier on the act of kindling, even though the mitzvah doesn't happen later, like we do by Ner Chanukah. Ner Chanukah Friday night, the Pashtus is the Zman, is, again, the Zman of lighting candles doesn't begin until the Tishka Chama, which many Rishonim assume to mean Seit HaChochavim. So how can we light candles before Shkia on Friday? So again, some say the mitzvah has changed and the mitzvah is earlier, but others say no, the mitzvah is still at the same time. So how can I make a bracha now? So the answer is you're making a bracha on the Ma'aseh Halakha, even though the Kiyam isn't going to fulfill until later on. That's why you have to use oil along candles. But the point is, there's a discussion whether you could make a bracha now and do things later. So that's a whole discussion in the poskim. And then the question today with the electric lights, we'll have to continue at a later time. I share more on the Indian of Halakha's Neiros, lighting candles, and specifically lighting candles early before Shkia. Is there any heter? Obviously, all things being equal, one should avoid the problem. Is there any limit for those who can only light candles before Parag HaMincha? Parshas Beha-alotcha begins with God instructing Moshe, "V'daber Hashem el Moshe lemor, daber el Aaron, speak to Aaron your brother, and tell him about the mitzvah of lighting the menorah." And then right after, as we see in Pasuk Gimel, "Vayas Kain Aaron," and Aaron listened to what Moshe commanded, what God commanded, and he kindled the menorah for the first time. So Rashi quotes the Sifri in Pasuk Gimel by Yonim, Vayas Kain Aaron, that Aaron did like God and Moshe commanded. V'hagid Shivcho Shel Aaron. This is coming to give praise to Aaron. What kind of praise? Shelo Shina. Tremendous praise to Aaron. He didn't change anything that was commanded. He did exactly the way he was told. And therefore the Torah goes out of its way, Vayas Kain Aaron, to give him credit. That's the free. Rashi quotes. Many of the Mefarshim are bothered by what is Rashi, what is this Sifri getting at? Like, you're saying such a novel thing, like Aaron did something great, what was the big deal? When someone tells you to do something, or your parents tell you to do something, you listen. God tells you to do something, you listen. Your Rabbi tells you to do, like, wow, you know what, I can't believe it, it's amazing. Aaron is amazing. He actually listened to what Moshe and God told him to do. So what exactly, obviously this Sifri is telling me something more here. So what exactly is the lesson here? L'hagid shivcho shel Aaron shelo shina. The greatness of Aaron that he didn't change. So we'll discuss different Mefarshim, different Achronim on the topic. They quote in the name of the Rivos Ephraim, Rev Greenblatt, the one from Memphis, and he says, what's pshat in the Sifri? There was a tremendous accomplishment. There was a tremendous feat that he did. So he explains you have to understand it in a different context. We know the famous Mishnah in Pirkei Avos, and we know that Aaron was famous for. He was an Ohev Shalom. He loved Shalom. He was a Rodev Shalom. He ran after peace, and he brought people closer to Torah. So in other words, he basically was, like today, many people are exclusively work as in the field of kiruv, of bringing non-observant Jews back to the fold, or even some semi-observant Jews more, but they're in the field of kiruv. They're kiruv professionals, so to speak. So that's what Aaron basically used to do. He used to go and Ohev Shalom, Rodev Shalom. He went and he brought people closer to God. And one of the dangers in kiruv and this type of profession, among other things, is that sometimes people, in an effort to attain the long-term goal of attracting the Jews who aren't observant, and of course one has to make Judaism look enjoyable and try to bring people in, but at the same time one has to be careful not to compromise on the values. And therefore, on the contrary, one, despite the pressures we have, one has to go ahead and bring people in, at the same time be true to your own standards. And that's the greatness. Shelo Shina, he was able to keep his traditional standards. He was uncompromising in his standards, and that's the greatness. Like we find similarly how Rav Yitzchak Chachana writes in the beginning of the pasuk in Parashas Emor, Emor al Kohanim b'nei Aaron v'amarta aleim lenefesh lo yita b'yamav. So what's the pshat in the pasuk? So we know, as he also says, Aaron was an Ohev Shalom or Rodev Shalom. So we know unity, peace, harmony, it's a tremendous value. And it's one of the top values in Judaism. Shalom bayis, peace of household, harmony. We know what a tremendous principle it is. The Gemara tells us that you buy Shabbos candles over Hanukkah candles or wine for Kiddush, because Shabbos candles has the value of Shalom bayis. And as well, the Ramban writes, we even permit you to destroy God's name. When we do a nace, we do a miracle in the midst of a mitzvah, something we never do, is because of the tremendous mitzvah of Shalom bayis. So we know making Shalom is a tremendous thing. Excuse me. Making Shalom is a tremendous thing. So therefore, he's saying, Amoro Kohanim b'nei Aaron, he's speaking to the Kohanim, the leaders of the Jewish people, the sons of Aaron, or Ohev Shalom, Rodev Shalom. How far does peace go? How far does harmony go? L'nefesh lo yitama b'yamav. As long as you don't become defiled making Shalom, then you're okay. Like the Gemara tells us in Mechoros that there was a reed of, there was a certain wide reed they were trying to bring into a house. The reed was 6 foot wide and the door was only 4 feet wide. So the Gemara gives an example. Sometimes you try to push the reeds through the door, that's an example where you're causing more harm than good. If you're knocking down the edifice, the structure that the building stands on, there'll be nothing left. So if you're knocking down the edifice of Judaism, if you're compromising too much, you'll be left with nothing. As one example I read in one of the books, he gave an example like with chess. That let's say someone decides, you know what, I'm going to start moving a rook like a bishop, a pawn like a queen, a king like a rook, etc. So it might be a very interesting game, but it's no longer chess. So too, if you make too many changes, you change the fundamentals, it's no longer Judaism. So that's what the greatness of Aaron Shelo Shina, that not only was he tremendous in bringing people closer to Yiddishkeit, to Judaism, but Shelo Shina, he did it without compromising his own principles. He still kept his tremendous standards. That's how some explain the greatness of Aaron. There's a famous Svas Emes, one of the Hasidic Rabbis, the Gera Rebbe, others, he points out that he wants to give a different shot. What do you mean the greatness of Aaron Shelo Shina? That we all know, we've experienced in our own life, and it's common sense and seichel, that we know human beings we do things by rote, we do things by heart without thinking about it. But like all things, kol haskala is kosher. So when we begin something, it might be more difficult, but it's special. The first time, whether we're starting a new notebook, we're starting a new computer, any example you want to give, when something's new and fresh, there's a certain excitement. You're starting a new semester, the new term, you're starting Daf Yomi in Brachas, coming up soon, whatever excites you, whatever the beginning. So beginnings are always, people get excited easy. It's a natural thing. However, the greatness, but human instinct is after a while, when you get used to it, you're not so excited, you go through the motions. So the greatness of Aaron is V'hagid Shivko Sha'aron Shaloshina. The same way he performed the lighting of the candles the first time, he did it the second, third, fourth, 100. Every time he did it for the rest of his life, he was able to retain that level. Like I tell future bar mitzvah boys, people that come to shul about a month before and start putting on tefillin, and you see they're all excited about it. They take out the new tefillin, put it on for the first time, and I tell them, my blessing is to you, the same excitement you had today on putting on tefillin, that's the same excitement you should have the rest of your life. Every day should be chadash. We're not all on the level of Aaron, but we at least, that's something we should strive for. And that's the pshat Rabbi Nissen Alpern explained once. We read in the beginning of Bahar the mitzvah Shemitah. So of course the famous Rashi, Ma inyan Shemitah etel Har Sinai. What's the connection with Shemitah and Har Sinai? So Rashi quotes the Torah's Kohanim that dislike by the mitzvah of Shemitah, both the kolam and the pratim, the general and the particular rules were given in Har Sinai. So too by the whole Torah, all the general and particular rules were given in Har Sinai. So the kash is, why use Shemitah as an example? You could use many other mitzvahs. Why pick on Shemitah? And the answer is because, Albert explained, because same thing, when mitzvahs we do all the time, we get used to, it becomes stale. Mitzvahs we do once in a while, the more, even though we have a principle, Tadah v'she'eno Tadah Tadah Kodem, the one we do more often takes precedence, and it has more importance, but in terms of easier to do, something that comes up once in a while, we get excited easily. So Shemitah comes once every 7 years. All we farmers might not be very excited about it, but the concept, the principle is a mitzvah that comes once every 7 years, you're pretty excited about it. So too, that same islav as the excitement you have by the mitzvah Shemitah, that's the excitement you should have by the mitzvah, by all mitzvahs. That's why Shemitah was singled out. So why was Halakha's Deira singled out? Aaron did it by all mitzvahs. And that's what they point out, because that's what it's Halakha's Haneres, it's the fire of enthusiasm, of the excitement. So therefore, the Torah taught the example by the Halakha's Haneres. And the third explanation from also among some Hasidic Rebbeim that focuses on a different aspect, that we know, even though Moshe was Anav Mikol Adam, that Moshe was known as the humblest of all people, nevertheless Aaron also was very humble as well, and he showed a lot of humility. And therefore, what's the Hagid Shivcho Shel Aaron Shaloshina? What's the greatness of Aaron? That Aaron, who was the Kohen Gadol, and he used to light the candles all the time. He lit the menorah. He had the privilege of lighting the menorah. He had the privilege of being the Kohen Gadol, and therefore people gave him a lot of kavod, a lot of honor. It was a very prominent position. So that's the Hagid Shivcho Shaloshina. That it was the same Aaron that even before he became Kohen Gadol, before he lit the candle, before he took on all his prominent position, it was the same Aaron as before. He didn't let his success get to his head and think like, then become a little haughty. But the greatness of Aaron is Shaloshina. Even though it was a tremendous position, he still kept his anivis, and he maintained his pleasant character, Ohev es Shalom, Urodev es Shalom. And therefore, that's why a great tester was for Aaron, because the greater you are, the more difficult it is to be an Anav. So therefore the greatness of Aaron, he was able to keep his Aniva. So we have different explanations in terms of what was the greatness of Aaron. V'hagid Shivchosh Aaron Shagoshina, either to tell us he kept the same stance, even though he was involved in Kiruv and getting other people, non-observant Jews or people to get closer to Torah, nevertheless, he still was able to keep his own standards up to par. Or others say, no, it's referring to Aaron himself, not his standards, but his own performance of mitzvahs, that the same excitement he had the first time he lit the candles, that he had for all mitzvahs, and not only the first time, but the second, fifth, and 10th, and that's the concept of Rabbi explained by Shemitah as well. And we have the third approach, is showing the humility of Aaron, the greatness of Aaron HaKohen, even though he became so great. And for people, as we see around, we don't have to look too far, people in positions of power get too ahead and start believing in themselves, but not the greatness, Hagid Shivko Sha'aron, Shaloshina.